Welcome in, everybody, wherever you are and however you may be listening. This is your Wednesday wrap-up, and, of course, I'm here with my man, Herb. How's it going, man?
Man, it's a beautiful morning, man. I'm ready to get this started.
Yeah.
Even Raj made it on time.
What's that?
I said even Raj made it on time, so I won't get blamed for anything bad.
What? You don't have to lie for him. I know you logged into his account. It's fine.
So you're not used to seeing that, huh? Like, no, Raj? No.
I know that didn't happen.
I'm going to miss the random. Herb told me the show started at 8:15.
Oh, man. So we got the NFL Combine this week, and there's no real good stories going into it, which is why they're hyping up dumb stuff like Shedeur Sanders not going to throw at the Combine, which I don't know why anybody's shocked by this. He didn't play in the Shrine Bowl either, right? He said he was going to be there. He didn't play. He's not going to throw at the Combine. I look at it as if you are slated in the top 10, right? How's it going, Wen? You don't
What up, Wen? What up?
You don't need to participate in the Combine, because ultimately draft day, or pro days either, because at the end of the day, all you can do is hurt your stock, right? Like if you're already a top 10, the only thing that can happen is you show out, nothing changes.
Yeah.
If you play poorly, you fall down the draft board.
Right. Exactly. And every year they make a big deal out of the person skipping, but then every year someone's doing it. Like more and more guys are not throwing at the Combine, and most of them these days are just going with their pro days. So,
well, and usually it's top 10 guys, right? Like beyond that, people are playing in the Senior Bowls, the Shrine Bowls, throwing at the Combine, because they're trying to elevate their stock,
right?
And you can do that in those spots. But if you're already a top pick, it really doesn't. It really doesn't make a ton of sense. Is he a loafer? I don't think that's the case. Annoying, maybe. A loafer, probably not. I think his dad wouldn't allow that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know anything about Dion, dude works.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, you might not like the circus that goes around them, but in the heart of it, you're talking about one of the best to ever do it. And like you said, he wouldn't let his son on the field. Because what was it? When they were at the school before Colorado, when he missed a practice or something like that, or was late to a meeting, and he kept him out of the championship game. So no, there's not going to be a bad attitude around it. Like I said, this is something. So, like I think with a lot of guys do it. So it's like Bo says, if you're locked in to a certain spot, it can only hurt you. It can't help you like at all. He is one of two quarterbacks that's going to be taken in the first round. He can't do any better than that.
Exactly.
And he's got all his film from college that you can go look at. So realistically, the Combine shouldn't be the place where you're like, maybe the interviews and all that kind of stuff. But
so you have to do that.
Right.
You have to do the interviews. So you have to be present. You just don't have to actually do the workout. Yeah. And no, he's not too good for it. Think of it this way, since we have Alabama in the house, let's go this route. Alabama plays Vanderbilt, and they beat the brakes off them. You don't think twice about it. You're just like, okay. If it's a close game, you're like, man, Alabama didn't play well. Alabama loses. You're not saying Vanderbilt's amazing. You're saying what's wrong with Alabama, right? That's the same thing with this. Is if you go and you show out, you do exactly what everybody expects you to do. Cool. Nothing happens. If you struggle a little bit, people are like, man, do we have them too high? If you look bad, you could end up at the tail end of the first round.
Yeah.
You could fall all the way out of the first round, depending on how bad of a day you had. So there's not a lot of incentive to actually play if you're, a top 5, top 10 pick, because you can't elevate your stock beyond that. It's not like you can be a draft round 0 pickup, right? Like first round is it. So you really can't get better. Like he's not going to elevate past Cam Ward.
No.
Right?
No.
Cam Ward's going to be the first quarterback off the board. Shedeur will be the second.
Yeah.
Whether he goes 5th or 7th or second, doesn't matter.
Right.
As he's going to be that second guy. And if you're in the top 10, the difference between 2 and 10 is what, like $1 million on the contract. Right. So, I mean, it's not crazy. So there's not a lot of upside for the amount of downside that could potentially happen.
Yeah. And just to hammer that one home, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, Drake May, none of them threw at the combine last year.
Yeah.
So, and nobody's going to say, hey, are they, I guess, like a loafer or too good for it. It's just, like you said, it doesn't benefit him. For Caleb Williams, he couldn't move any higher than what he had. And Jayden Daniels was most likely not jumping Caleb Williams, and Drake May wasn't jumping the other two. So he was like, look, I'm here where I'm at. So,
yeah, I mean, at some point, you just have to understand that you are where you're at, right? Yeah. You're just like, okay, you know what? I'm probably going to be the 5th pick. Cool.
and I'm not going to give everybody an extra chance to poke holes in my game.
Exactly.
Because that's all it is. And then half the times the people poking holes in your game are the people who want you, but they're hoping you'll slide to them. So It's like, let me throw out a little bit of, hey, this guy is terrible. So
exactly. So he's going to need to have a big day.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Like Milroe has to have an excellent combine, because what he gave us at the end of the season through the Senior Bowl week and during that game was all terrible. And so, man, he's really going to have to kind of button that thing up, because otherwise he could fall deep. Because, I mean, as soon as he was pressured and kind of in a high pressure situation, he started to crumble, and everybody saw it, right? Like it's not like this panel happened to see the tape. Pretty sure that was nationally televised. So, it's he's going to need to have a huge day.
Yeah. Yeah. That one's one of those, obviously it's near and dear to our hearts, and we want him to do well, but like we saw what was out there, and he was one of the most polarizing figures, I think, here at Alabama. And you've got people on both sides, and the people who defend him blame it all on the coordinator. Well, I'm like, well, guess what? It's going to be at the combine. It's going to be throwing. It's going to be draft. It's going to be NFL. Like, you can't continue to blame everyone else. At some point, like, he's got to go out and show what he can do. We know he can run, and we know he can throw the deep ball, but that's not what's going to get it done at the next level. So he's got to show the rest of it.
Well, and Dustin, I don't agree with this at all. The combine outside of bowl games is your best chance to elevate. Pro days are funny in the way, especially for quarterbacks, are funny in the way that you're going through some scripted plays with your own guys.
Right.
GMs do not look at that as something awesome unless you are just really jumping off the page like Richardson did at his, right? Like he got to launch that 80-yard bomb, and that's what really moved him up the board. Milroe doesn't have that arm first, but at the end of the day, the combine sets you further ahead than your pro day does. And only because, again, it's scripted plays with guys you've worked with forever. That's why there's so many GMs and coaches that go to things like the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, things like that, because you're getting thrust in there with a bunch of other guys from around the nation you haven't played with. You got to try and figure out how to do it inside of a week. So they want to see how fast your uptake is with that. Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm. Like with the new playbook, because you have different coaches with the Senior Bowl, it's NFL terminology. They want to see how fast you can process and get ready for the game. Whereas a pro day, I mean, if Herb and I went out there and we'd been throwing the ball for 4 years, guess what? We're going to look pretty good out there.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's no defense either. So I'm going to be like, hey, run a post. I'm going to be like, I better be able to make that throw.
Right.
Because we've been practicing forever, because we've been friends, and there's no defense and there's no pressure.
Yep. Which, by the way, we probably also ran over the script the day before, the whole week before, the
100%.
morning before,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, this wasn't like we worked out last week or last year and then we're just making it happen.
Yes.
Like we've been practicing this.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't agree with that. They can make an impact. I'm not saying that at all. But the biggest movers are the bowl games, specifically the ones where they are the all-star game type bowl games, and the combine.
Yeah.
Now, some position groups may not get as much love during the combine, but things that accuracy from quarterbacks matters there, speed matters there.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's elements that may not, but those two things are huge.
Yeah. It is interesting that they get to the combine and they start picking apart stuff. And a lot of these people will ignore, hey, we saw this guy for 3 or 4 years. What do we think? Nah, I like what he did in space, Like you mentioned Anthony Richardson and throwing the deep ball, but he had a handful of start. Like he didn't, even I don't think make it through his whole year at Florida. And they were like, yeah, you know what? Number 4 pick. Trey Lance had 13 full college, in his whole college career. They're like, trade the whole draft, number 3 pick. It's like we ignore so much.
So those were drafts on
potential,
the hope of upside. Exactly. Right. And it's something that I don't love about where the NFL has gone.
Yeah. Especially with those high up picks. That's what's crazy to me.
Yeah. No, like it had Richardson been a 3rd rounder,
right? We wouldn't even be talking about
which kind of would have made sense, right? Like he didn't play a lot, and there's huge potential upside. Throwing a 3rd rounder at that, of course,
right?
High 1st round pick makes absolutely no sense.
No.
Now, did he have moments where he looked great? Sure, right? But he was a guy that needs to develop. What's the one problem with the league today?
Because they don't
develop.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know why? So I've been listening to a couple of different fan bases or shows or whatever. And part of the problem is there's a disconnect a lot of times between the coach and the GM and the fan base. And,
sure.
Like they mentioned Kellen Moore going into New Orleans situation and like Spencer Rattler. And they're like, because you just throw them out there, have a bad year, right? Get a high draft pick, be fine, right? Next year. That's what it is, right? That's probably a sound strategy. But you're Kellen Moore. You don't want your first year to be a terrible year, and now they're already on the hot seat, right? So you're going to plug in somebody to win now, and you're not going to either, worrying about developing anybody. You're going to try to fast track what you're doing,
Well, you're trying not to get fired.
Right.
Like so many coaches end up just one and done because they're like, you didn't do what we needed. It's like, well, yeah, you didn't let me build a team.
Right.
Right. And that's the biggest thing with quarterbacks now is because you don't have the time to let them develop. You have guys like Justin Fields that we're 5 years in. We still don't know if he can throw a football.
Yeah.
Right. Like he can throw to the flat. Cool. Like we can all throw to the flat.
Yes.
That's 15 yards away. But as soon as he has to push the field at all, it's wildly inconsistent. And, so because everybody is you have to be great today, you have to win right now.
Right.
You don't give these guys the latitude to be able to actually develop their game, which is why the only thing we really see out of Fields is, well, he can run the ball.
Right.
It's like, well, that's awesome. So can running backs.
Yes.
So,
yes. And your shelf life in the NFL is, go ask RG3 about that. Your shelf life in the NFL, if that's all you're going to do, is so short. So, And back to kind of the one of those points in there, that's my fear from Milroe is that they'll do it like Richardson. Now, the good thing for him is he's not getting drafted at number 4.
No.
3rd to 4th round is a good spot for him, so they'll know what they're getting. There won't be that added pressure going in. But yeah, the NFL is just not for that. Like I said, guys are trying to avoid getting fired. They're not. Morning, Linda. What's up? They're not trying to invest time in people. So everybody's just like, and the college has done this even worse. The time period we used to give you is shorter and shorter every year. We used to say in college, hey, 3 to 4 years. Now we're like it's been half a season. Like, what's going on?
I mean, especially now that it's become professional sports, right? I mean, before you'd go to college, and they were programs, right? Like you came up through the program to develop your game to become NFL ready. Now the NFL has to draft on potential because you're mad you didn't start, and then you transferred, and then something happened, and you transfer again. And I mean, you're not even staying in a system anymore to try and figure out what it is you can be. So then you get to the NFL. The NFL's like, okay, yeah, we see flashes of what you could be, but at the same time, this is my second year here, and if we're sub 500, I'm probably fired. And now you're getting a new OC and a new head coach, potentially a new GM. And I mean, it's such a dumpster fire as far as actually bringing athletes along that, I mean, it's unfortunate, and you're seeing the quality from that position go way down.
Oh yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, you look at Cam Ward, who transferred, and he's with Miami a year, then he's going to be out somewhere else. I have faith that you win. I think you could. I think you could do it.
We're saying 15 yards. Like, you could shot put that, I think.
Yeah, I think you got it.
Doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to get there.
We've got more faith in you than you do, for sure. For sure. But no, I mean, you're absolutely right. The whole thing has changed. Guys aren't in it to develop anymore anyway at the college level. So they're like, where can I make the quickest buck and maybe get more playing time? And yeah, I think Tom Brady even said, man, the quarterback position is the one suffering the most. There's so much movement player-wise and coach-wise. Because I think even Jalen Hurts, a guy who only, transferred once and for his graduate year, has still been through like a different OC like almost every year. It's I don't know. It's crazy. And then they look back and they're like, I don't know what the problem is. I'm like, it's pretty clear. The whole system sucks. And you guys are overdrafting guys and then throwing them out there too early. And then you're blaming them for the whole situation, So.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the two quarterbacks that are going to go, top 5, right? Because I imagine Shedeur will be either number 2 or number 3 coming off the board probably.
Right.
Cam Ward and Shedeur. Like, Cam Ward's probably the most pro-ready guy of this draft. Neither one of them should start next year.
No.
Like, they shouldn't. Are they going to? 100% they're going to, because nobody's going to give them the time to sit and develop and do the things that would actually elevate their game and make them the star that you think they should be able to be.
Right.
Instead, they're going to get the treatment of, get out there with this horrible team, don't die.
Yeah. Yep. And I think he ends up doing a little blame shifting, because then if we sit him for a year and we try to develop him and then we put him out a year later, that's more on us. If he doesn't look ready, they're like, well, what'd you do for the last year? Exactly. If we throw him out there the first year, they're like, oh, he just clearly wasn't the player we thought he was when we got, like, really? Exactly. That's his fault? So
I mean, right? You're just like, oh, you know what? This guy really needs coaching. It's like, cool. Yeah, we're not going to do that, though.
No. I agree with you. It's not going to happen.
I'm going to make all of the rounds on the TV shows and be like, yeah, no, he, tons of upside, just needs to develop, needs that coaching. It's like, cool. Are you doing that? Yeah,
no. We're putting him out there in week 3.
Yeah. It's going to be great. I'm sure
it's going to be great. Yeah. Is your line any better? No.
In fact, we traded a piece to bring him in. So we're for sure he's just going to run for his life. And then we're going to be like, he's super inaccurate. Yeah. So Gabriel is he's going to benefit from being able to sit. He's going to be he's probably going to go in the 3rd round. And that's about the right spot for him. Is he needs to be able to kind of work on some things as far as his game's concerned. Also he's going to have to have a team that is ready for his size. Right. As much as teams are like to say, oh yeah, the stereotypical 6'5" guy isn't necessary anymore. Of course they're going to say that on TV. Right. When they're in their draft rooms,
that's not what
those numbers matter.
Yes.
they're taking Josh Allen over Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray every time. They just are, because arm strength, size, whatever, right? So Gabriel, because of his smaller game played size and smaller stature as a human, that's gonna hurt where he would normally be in the draft, despite having a great year in Oregon. He'll probably be a third round guy, and the good thing is he's going to go to a little bit better team, right? Because he's going to be somewhere in the third round. He's probably going to go to a team that actually has some pieces to play with, right. And he's probably not going to have to start week 1, which will be huge, because if you watch some of the Senior Bowl is a great example of that. If you watch that, he wasn't super accurate during practice that week. He had moments where he looked good, but I mean, the entire quarterback class during that week and that game were they left something to be desired.
Right. Right. Which kind of speaks to the draft class that we thought we were getting anyway. So I'm surprised Zach. I always thought of him as a more accurate kind of guy, a little bit of mobility. But I think you hit it perfectly. Get drafted somewhere in that range and get to sit, and I think immediately he's a good backup quarterback. And then, like I said, probably in spurts or have to get out there for a game or two, be fine. But I don't know that, like, I would think, hey, year 1, Dillon Gabriel starting quarterback, And I liked him, at Oklahoma till they ran him off and totally misplayed that situation. And then at Oregon. So I thought it'd be good. So we'll see how that works.
Well, and you could see him being a good fit. Like, imagine like Arizona bringing him in to back up Kyler. Like, I could see that, right? Mm-hmm. And why I could see that is, say Kyler gets hurt, which happens, right? You don't have to completely change the way your offensive line blocks for Gabriel to come in. It's why I always like when they bring in a backup that plays similarly to their starter. I've never understood where you're like, okay, I have this really hyper athletic guy for, my starter. I'm going to get this statue to back him up. It's like, cool. That offensive line hates you as a GM.
Yes.
Because now everything they practice all year, they have to ignore, because they're used to a guy that likes to massage the pocket. And now you have a guy that can't move at all. So now it's like, okay, well, my blocking scheme has to change. So it's I could see a team like that, maybe like Seattle, because Geno, has the ability to move around. It's not like Gabriel is a Lamar Jackson kind of guy, right? He can extend a play, he can move around, but he's not a dynamic runner.
Yeah, he was mobile enough, though. Yeah, so no, exactly to your point. No, that's actually a good comparison, because I never really kind of thought about that. Because a lot of teams do that. They've got one guy who's not going anywhere, and the other guy who wants to run all around and do everything. And you're like, what? Oh, yeah, that's a bad word.
Could go back up to Sean, I guess.
Yeah. How many teams are going to start banning massages and massage parlors? They're like, look, we have an in-house person. And
one thing I don't understand is why are you going to a different one every time, right? Like, for me, I went to like 2 or 3 different ones the whole time I played, because you're like, okay, you know what you're doing. Let's do more of that.
Yes.
Not the, hey, let me just find somebody on Instagram and hope you're good at your job. Like, I don't know. It was just very weird. But I mean, at the same time, I wasn't there to get a rub and tug. Like, I was actually trying to get healthy. So
motivations are totally different, huh?
A little bit. Yeah. Let's see, to back up Tua. I mean, Cam Ward, right? Because he's going to need to start. Sorry, Raj. Man.
And I'm throwing out the top 2 just because I want to look at someone who's in a draftable range for them.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you need somebody who, you got to have a good arm, because you got 2 speedsters out there, That's what I felt like they weren't doing when they threw out like Tyler Huntley and all those folks. They weren't trying to stretch the field at all.
Yeah.
I know you want to say Milroe kind of Raj because of the deep ball, but any timing patterns over the middle, he'd be terrible. So you're eliminating half the game. So I don't know if a Dart would do it because he did play. He's mobile enough, so he knows how to take some hits back there, and Lane knows how to coach quarterbacks. So I just don't know about the arm strength part.
I don't remember where you guys are cap wise, because the guy that might make sense, before I butcher his name, you could probably get him as an undrafted free agent, or maybe grab him in the 6th or 7th round. Is the kid out of Canada, Taylor Elgersma. He played as well as anybody else, and he had to learn the game on top of new terminology and everything, because he was playing up in Canada, and up there they were playing with the CFL rules.
Yeah, like 3 downs
not only
instead of
did
4.
he have to come down and learn NFL terminology, but he had to learn all the rules of the game in the week of the Senior Bowl, and he played every bit as good as everybody else.
That's interesting.
So I would take a look at him as a 7th rounder, undrafted free agent, almost free when it comes to your cap hit.
6'6", too.
Ton of upside. He's a big dude, has a decent arm. The one thing he'll have to do is, he'll have to learn how to move around a little bit. He didn't do a ton of that during, Senior Bowl week, but I haven't gone back and looked at all his tape either. I'm actually going to talking to his agent about having him on the show at some point.
Of course you are.
Hey, Brian, always working, man. Always working. So, but yeah, I mean, it's one that could be good for you guys. He wouldn't have to play right away, right? In theory, and you're hoping anyway.
Yeah, he at least gets the game 3 or 4. I'm assuming
before
he has to get out there.
Yeah. But you guys do have good coaching, right? So that could be a good fit for him. And again, only because you don't have to spend anything to go get it.
I like that comp though. I hadn't heard of him, so I'll definitely have to look up it. I guess Raj is doing the same thing right now. So
yeah,
we had both talked about their draft needs to be defense, and then somewhere in the later round they've got to pick up a backup that, like you said, don't need a guy who is ready day one, but a guy who can come in at some point and just realizes, all right, we're going to throw deep to Tyreek, or if they're coming across the middle or whatever on a slant or whatever, you better hit them quickly so they can catch it and go and stretch the field a little. I think that's the biggest thing they lost whenever Tua goes down is it's like they want to throw 5-yarders and then hand off and punt to a defense. It's like, we're not built for this. Like, we need you guys to score points. So
yeah, you got to be able to stretch the field. I mean, you have all that speed.
Yeah.
If you're throwing checkdowns, like what are you doing? I mean, that's like owning a Ferrari and then taking your Pinto wagon instead. You're like, I have this.
I do.
And I'm going to the track, but instead I'm going to take this busted ass jalopy here and hope for the best.
Yeah. But what I will do is the Ferrari, I won't park it in the garage so you guys can at least still see I have it. So
for sure. In fact,
show it off.
Park it in the rain so you're mad about it. Yeah. No, it's I don't know. I just don't love the quarterback class this year.
It's a weird class.
Outside of Dart and Milroe, I mean, everybody else is going to be 5th rounders.
Yeah.
5th, 6th round.
Yeah, and Ewers was starting for several years at a team that went to the playoff back-to-back years, with the game of making the championship, and people aren't sold on him. That tells you a lot. People are trying to talk themselves into Will Howard now, and I'm like, Come on, nobody was super impressed with him at K-State, and then he goes to Ohio State that has every weapon imaginable. So,
Yeah.
and
Well,
look,
Ewers is different though. So the thing with Ewers is he can never stay healthy.
right.
And not to say that that doesn't get you drafted. Obviously, it can, but you know he's not going to be that top level guy. Like it makes sense.
I agree. I'm saying it's interesting that you have a guy with that resume, and people are even like, "Yeah, that's still not the guy." I'm speaking to the class, like, "Yeah, that tells you how bad this class is with a guy with that resume." And you look at him and goes, "Probably a sum of all the other parts." Versus, look, I've listened to, I told you, Texas broadcast, and those guys are like, "Look, he's not the guy. He's like, he's a guy. He's like, he won't lose you many games. He's just not going to win you many games, and he's going to get hurt every year." And I think teams are seeing that. So I think it's almost like it's
that second part.
Yeah.
It's the second part that's the biggest thing. Because if you're a guy that's not going to lose games but can win you a few, you get drafted. If you can't stay healthy, that's tough.
It's kind of funny too, though. I feel like media or like, I don't know, maybe I'm trying. It doesn't seem like it gets talked about as much, his injury history, because it's not like high profile, I guess. I don't know. But we all kind of talk about it, and everyone notices. Everyone in the SEC notices it. You know, that's what everybody talks about. Guess what? He's been hurt every year. Yeah. And like those are the kind of things that only get worse in the NFL to me. So
I think to your point there, why it doesn't get talked about is he gets banged up. He doesn't get hurt. Right? Like he gets banged up and he misses a few games here and he misses a few games there, but he's otherwise available and he comes back, right? Whereas like for Tua, season ending type stuff.
Right.
So that hits the much bigger storylines. They're like, oh, hip injury, done for the year, right? Whereas it's like Ewers, banged up, out for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it doesn't hit the headlines the same because they want the wow factor of the story. But if you're looking at it as, hey, we need this guy to be able to lead our franchise, it's like, well, okay, he's going to be available for 8 weeks, and we don't get to choose which 8.
Right. Right. No, I mean, that's an excellent point. Especially like you said, the franchise guy, the quarterback. This is the guy who we're going to give the most money to. And yeah, just all right, guys, stretch run. We need, to go at least 2-2 in these next 4 games to make the playoffs. That's great. Ewers going to miss 3 of them. You're like, what? Yeah, sorry. It's that time of year. Look, we got all the way to this point healthy. We couldn't make it the whole way. So.
That's right. My receiver has turf toe. I'm out for 2 weeks. Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting when he hits the draft next year because his projections will be all over the map. Especially if he has a good season, right? If he has a good final season.
Who are you talking about with?
Ewers.
No, he's in. I thought he's in the draft now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see him. I thought he was going back to school for one more.
Because I think they're ready for Arch to take over.
Yeah, so. I thought he transferred to Miami, though.
No, you're talking about Beck.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We had a great talk about Beck.
Yeah?
Remember he followed? Yeah, well, because he followed his girlfriend there.
Yes.
That's the Cavender twins. Yes.
I mean, I'm not bad at that.
Yeah. So Raj looked at both of them and he said, "Is this Photoshop?" He said, why are you looking at Beck and thinking he's pulling her? I was like, I mean, quarterback.
NIL.
NIL. So, I mean, yeah. He routed him. So no, Ewers is staying. Now his draft stock had plummeted through the year, and then season-ending injury, and then still entered the draft, and then all of a sudden, okay, this is what I love too when they talk about there's no tampering or anything. He exits the draft, enters the transfer portal, and is like already in Miami, and you're like, yeah, they didn't call him beforehand. He made that decision on the fly, with no calling ahead. So yeah.
Nope, absolutely. I'm trying to see where Ewers is projected.
I haven't heard anything about him since the season end. You've heard a lot about all these other guys, but
no, that's why I thought he was going back to school.
I'm trying to think what I had.
Okay, so they're saying roughly fourth round,
Right.
which that seems right. I mean, basically outside of Dart and Gabriel, Milrow, maybe those are probably all late third rounders, and then everybody else is fourth and on. So that makes sense. That makes sense. And I mean, honestly, if I'm a GM and I'm looking at yours, it's a late round pick because you're taking a flyer on him.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of those like, I just don't trust that he can stay healthy.
Right. Without the upside of any, he's not the most mobile guy either. So he's not doing any of the extra stuff that you'll see. And like I said, nobody's wowed by him. So yeah, I definitely see him after the others. Like I said, people are trying to talk themselves into Will Howard these days. So he's a mover, I guess, up. But yours, you don't hear it. Like you said, you wouldn't even know he's in the draft because you don't hear. It's like, I don't know, like he went to the house and he's just been sitting inside playing video games the whole time since the season ended.
So he's going to the Cardinals. Okay. That's good.
Now it makes sense.
He's part of Kyler's Call of Duty team. Perfect.
There you go.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize he actually declared. I thought he was going back to school. So, I guess because I hadn't heard anything, maybe I just made that up in my head, because coming out into the draft after the way his year went seemed odd, because I think he still has a year of eligibility.
He does.
So I was thinking maybe that was the route. He wanted another good year of football.
There are rumors that he had some sizable NIL offers if he would transfer their schools. Some of the schools made no sense. I want to say Michigan State was on the list, and then possibly Oregon. And I felt like we're talking $6 million and up offers. Obviously everything's rumored. I don't have sources, so don't take everything with a bucket of salt. Not just a grain.
What his rookie deal will be if he's a fourth or fifth rounder.
Yeah. So I was kind of surprised. I knew 1,000% though he wasn't going back to Texas for one more year. That fan base was ready for Arch Manning. I think they were ready to move on. Mm-hmm. They had definitely hit their ceiling with Ewers, and now they're ready to see what Arch has. So I knew he wouldn't go back to Texas, but like you just said, I mean, you extend your college career for one more year and a boatload of money to do it. That's a hard turn down. So
well, especially if you can still go to a good school, right? Like if you can go to Oregon that has all the pieces, right? Or, something like that. Or you go to, Florida State could work. They have a lot of nice pieces. Even if he stayed in Texas and he went to A&M,
right?
A&M has a lot of nice pieces. Like it's a good team. Yeah. So I think if he were to do something like that, it probably would have been good, unless he really thinks I may not make it through another season.
Yeah. Well, I'm reading it.
Then you get that rookie deal.
Yeah. Well, I'm reading it. They said he played through a torn oblique throughout the whole year. So I'm like, you were hurt even when you weren't hurt. Right. But they do say he is going to throw at the combine. So.
Oh, he has to.
So
no. He has to do that. He has to do the pro day. Like he's got to take as many shots to put something good up. That's one of those where if he can go into the combine and a pro day and be surgical with his throws, he can really help his stock. Because then in the third round, fourth round, whatever, people will look at that and be like, okay, if we build the line right, we can make this work. If we can get him protection, not to say that he didn't have plenty of protection in Texas, because let's be honest, that offensive line was pretty good.
Yeah.
But, if you can get him in the mid to late rounds, I mean, you take a flyer on him. Like he can throw the ball. There's no question there.
Yeah. He just kind of has backup quarterback written all over him, I guess, to me, NFL wise. But I would absolutely, I mean, as long as you don't overpay for him, I think you're fine. And put him in, like you said, to a situation where I just need you on the bench for a while. And let's kind of see what we have. Maybe get into some mop-up duty if we're that lucky or whatever. And we'll just see what we have for a couple years.
Well, and
So.
I mean, if you're giving up a third or a fourth rounder, and he becomes your stable backup, that's a win.
Yep.
I mean, third or fourth rounder for a solid backup, that's money in the bank.
Yeah. No, I agree. Especially given what was it last year? How many starting quarterbacks went down? Like, look, I need a guy who's going to be able to come in here.
Yeah.
The list of guys who didn't get hurt is the shorter list than guys who did. So no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, yeah. It wasn't this last season. It was the season before, right?
Before, yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah, sorry.
And there was, if I remember right, it was like 68 different people started.
Yeah.
For 30.
You're right on that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not awesome.
No.
Funny, but not awesome.
No. NFL's looking at their product like, what is going on? Yeah, the guys you pay the most money, none of them are playing. Sorry.
Well, the biggest problem there, and it was something that I was talking about that entire season, was offensive line play has become absolute garbage.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is because they're not allowed to hit in preseason. They're not allowed to hit in practices. Or you have quarterbacks that just don't show up. And then they're like, how come our timing's off? It's like, gee, I don't know. Probably because you didn't practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, the not being able to hit thing is it's a problem for offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, the other position groups, maybe it doesn't matter as much. But it absolutely matters for especially offensive linemen because they got to be able to move as a unit and they need you to be able to come at full speed so that they can practice shifting out and pushing you off. You can't do that in walkthroughs.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't work, which is why the first couple of games of the season, especially now that we're limiting preseason games, is terrible. Like offensive line play is absolutely atrocious. And then timing between your quarterback and receivers, really not very good because you're not allowed to make any real contact, which means these receivers have been practicing against free releases for 4 months. And then all of a sudden they have somebody that puts a hand on them. That route doesn't look the same.
I would try and get my wife to come in and give my kiss on camera, but she just leaves. So. Bye.
She has to blow you a kiss. I'm out.
Yes, and I'm out. Yep. And by the way, I absolutely agree that that's the biggest thing, the preseason, the lack of continuity. I think a smaller percentage I would also throw at how much free agent movement that you have each year now, especially along lines. And like I said, a small, like total, I believe that's the biggest thing. Hey, in the preseason, you're not hitting. There's no continuity. Like I can't imagine showing up game one and we've thrown a handful of passes together, no real live action. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, let's see how this game goes, So, but I do think
that on this show every week.
But you know what? We're kind of elite, though. Like, not everybody can do what we do. You know what I mean? Like, it's a rare thing, though. It's a rare thing. So.
That's right.
When I say not to toot my own horn, but just hey. Good job. Awesome. But I do think that's kind of part of it too, with all the movement that guys just aren't used to playing together, and then like you said, they don't play together, and then they get out there game one. You've got like the Aaron Rodgers of the universe who like to show up for game one and skip everything beforehand, and you're just like, I wonder why this isn't working out.
Yeah, and then he's like, we have to get this receiver out of here. It's like, that's his third pass from you ever.
I know. And he's like, oh, it's within a 5-mile radius of him. He should have caught it. But I mean, it bounced.
It was the one that, I think it was like a 10-yard throw across the middle, right? Mm-hmm. So he's what, 15 yards? And then Rodgers throws it as hard as he can to a guy he's had very little practice with. And he wasn't ready for the speed. It bounces off his hands, right? Well, yeah, because the guy he had before was Zach Wilson, not exactly a cannon, right? So you're just like, okay, so you just threw it as hard as you could, which would have been fine if he was 50 yards away, but he's 15 yards away.
Yeah. And
you're like, he has to get out of here. I mean, I feel like maybe, just maybe, that might have been a little on you.
Yes. Yes. Look, the next time he takes accountability for a bad throw will be the first time. So like I don't I don't it's you can't be the
Not
face
wrong.
of the organization. Yeah, I mean and like nothing is ever your fault. You know what I mean? Like I just don't understand. And thank you, Win. Like I
Appreciate
said,
it,
we're
Win.
great. We're great. I never will tell us stuff like that, but we're great.
So since we're talking about Aaron Rodgers, this was on my list today anyway. Now he's talking about wanting to go to the Rams. Okay, which that part makes sense. California kid wants to go back home and bring Davante Adams with him. Hilarious.
Yeah.
As a Seahawk fan, I hope it happens.
I can't wait for him and McVay get into a cage match or something, but go ahead.
Well, yes. Awesome. But, the problem is it sort of works if you think about it, right? Because they're so kind of invested in moving on from Stafford.
Right.
And
Kupp.
And Kupp.
Yeah.
So then if you bring in another 40-year-old quarterback,
yes,
and another aging receiver, it sort of fits the two guys that are leaving, except the two guys that are leaving won you a Super Bowl already. So I'm not exactly sure why you're doing it. Right. But yeah, if the Rams want to bring that dysfunction into their house, let's go.
So you get what, older at quarterback, right? And is it similar age because Stafford's like 37 and Rodgers like 40, right? So you're losing a little bit of years, right? And probably similar in wide receiver. Way more dysfunction, way more ego on a team that's not, that's good and they played well last year, but you don't think it's Super Bowl ready. So are you thinking these two put you over the top?
So the thing with the Rams is their starters are great.
Mm-hmm.
Their depth is terrible.
Yeah.
And so if everyone can stay healthy, which is ultimately what had them get to the playoffs last year, is they started the first 5 weeks of the season beat up and they looked terrible. I think they were 1-4. And then everybody got healthy and everybody stayed healthy, I think was the craziest part about it. Is soon as those guys came back, nobody of note really got hurt.
Right.
The rest of the way.
Yeah. Which doesn't happen 2 years in a row for real.
No, not at all. Yeah, no. So, I mean, and you mean to tell me you want to get rid of Stafford, who won you a ring, and despite having guys get hurt and whatever, and also being hurt, played well.
Yeah.
Right? For Aaron Rodgers, who looked bad his last season in Green Bay, got hurt the next season in New York, had 4 good games to finish the season when it didn't matter anymore. So you're 4 years removed from good football.
Yep.
That's your answer, right? Like if you're going to cheat on a test, at least sit next to the smart person.
Right.
Like if you're sitting next to your buddy who's also dumb.
Yes. And who's been in the class 4 times already. But and then to Wynn's point here, like think about what Garrett Wilson went through this year with Rodgers trying to force feed Davante Adams. If he gets that over there and Puka just disappears, like you're sacrificing your future for one
season.
Right? Yeah, for one season. Yeah. And to your point, man, about the Rams, I mean, they played the Eagles the toughest, right, in the playoffs too as well. So if they finish that last spot, but a whole season of Rodgers and that, I just imagine the first time he throws the ball to Puka that's terrible and Puka doesn't catch and then he doesn't get another throw for 2 games. Like that's just a situation waiting to happen. So no.
What are you talking about? He's going to try and move him off the team.
Some team is sitting out there with like a 3rd or 4th rounder going, really? I can get Puka because you guys are tired of him? Sure. I'll wait this situation out.
Exactly.
I'm really good with this. Did you see a part?
Oh, I was just going to say, we don't know where he's going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's rumors all over. I know Pittsburgh has been thrown out as kind of a
that would be the smart place to go.
Yeah.
For the Steelers, if they were to grab Kupp, if they were to grab Davante, Honestly, even if they went and snagged D-Hop, because he's not going to stay with KC, right? Those would all be great to be the opposite side of Pickens.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, one of the biggest problems with that offense for the Steelers is they have one guy.
Yeah.
Well, it's really easy to double up one guy.
Yeah.
So,
or to take him out of the game because he's a head case as well. So there's a whole lot going on with the Pickens situation.
There's a lot there.
Yeah. But no, I agree. Kupp would be
a
good fit.
Or you start Fields and he can't actually throw him the ball.
Yeah. Why not? Stafford and Kupp can just go to the Steelers. They'll just do a package deal and take both, I guess.
I mean, they better add something at that offensive line position. But yeah. I mean, the one thing with Stafford is wherever he goes, he has to have a good O-line in front of him.
Yeah.
I could see him having success with Minnesota, though.
Yeah, I could see that as well.
Right? Like, he's got all the toys. He has a good defense.
He would love that. He'd feel like he was almost right there, except he's just upgraded. He's like, so I'm going from Kupp and Puka to Justin Jefferson and Addison.
Yep.
I can handle this. I'm good.
Well, and who knows? Depending on what Kupp is looking for, maybe he becomes their slot.
That's not fair.
That was ridiculous, right?
That's not fair. Like you're over there playing Madden.
Right? This is the create your own character.
Yeah.
Look at that, 99s across the board. Who knew?
This is crazy, and I'm winning every game. Oh, really? Are you now? That's amazing.
Yeah, but it's like the old style Madden where you're playing the like Euro League, where you're 99s across the board and their best player's like a 76.
I'm with you. Look, man, I'm the guy that says Alabama should play like the school for the deaf and blind every year. So I don't mind cupcakes. I don't mind easy games. I want the easiest schedule possible. Did you read too where some Jets players were upset that they let Rodgers go?
Players were?
Yes.
Okay.
I see you're shocked.
They were on the team at the same time.
Yes. One of them was one of our guys, Quinnen Williams from Alabama. Actually posted something. He's like, okay, I guess we're rebuilding again. And I was like,
man, you've been rebuilding for 20 years.
I know. I was like, Q, I love you. But man, y'all weren't good this last year with him. You know, I don't. I got him, didn't I win? He just looked at me like, what is her? No.
I didn't realize we were in Bizarro world.
So there's a lot of stories I like just see the headlines on like ESPN and I don't click. I had to click this one because or wherever I saw it, I was like, this cannot be a true story. People watched this last season and said to myself, we need more of that. And I don't know. And then to see my guy on there, I'm like, Q, no, don't what? No.
So to be fair, I agree with the first part. We needed to see more of that. It was amazing.
Oh. Yes. From the outside world, yes. It was great.
Like, I can't imagine being a Jets fan and being like, this is the product we wanted. But from the outside, especially for, shows like this, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just throwing more garbage on the dumpster fire all the time. You're like, this tire looks like it'll burn. Like,
but their problem is the tire they directly took off of a car while they were doing it. Hey, how are we getting home? I don't know. Burn it though.
Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, it's that meme of the guy on the bike that sticks a stick in his front spoke. It's just like, I don't know how I crashed. It's like, I feel like you do, though.
Yes. There's a lot of evidence to suggest you had something to do with it. I'm just saying.
Right? Well, and I mean, honestly, if you're a GM and you're looking at Rodgers, right, and say you just ignore his ridiculous drop-off throwing the ball, right? Like, say you're just like, you know what, in my mind, he's going to come here, going to be the MVP again. Except the Jets were like, hey, we'll keep you as long as you don't do outside media, right? Because he can't figure out how to not throw teammates under the bus. And you show up to required things that I believe is written in your contract anyway, that you're going to show up to practice and play with the team, the little things. And for him to be like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, what other GM is like, that's our guy?
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree. Which makes sense that it's a defensive player that say he's going to miss him because you're one of the few guys that doesn't get thrown under the bus. But everyone on offense outside of Devontae Adams, I don't think they're feeling that. So good luck with that.
One, how mad are the guys that he ran off the team?
Yes.
He's like, really? Like he doesn't play. He runs me off the team and plays terrible. And then you get rid of him. And now I'm wherever I'm at.
Yes.
And I mean, I guess all things being equal, wherever you went, it's probably going to be an upgrade anyway.
You're probably still happy. Huh?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not mad. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, and this I agree with, right? Like no GM should legitimately be looking at him because he's also old when it comes to football years, right? So, I mean, even if everything were to go perfect, which it's Rodgers, so it won't, but say it did, you have him for a year or two, maybe. I mean, you're not building around that.
No.
And if he's as good as you hope he is, you're not winning a ring, really. And any draft pick you would have had is now bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're going to be picking in the, high teens, mid 20s. And so you're not getting a top level QB there. So basically you're just kind of stumbling along at a 500 team. And that's best case scenario. Because it's not like he's going to one of the good teams because, well, they have a quarterback. So you're going to go to a mid-level team at best.
Who you can't elevate anymore.
Exactly. And you're going to be a shell of the guy that you used to be.
Yeah.
You're not going to practice. You've proven that. So, like, I'm not seeing the upside.
No.
Like, I don't know how you pull this trigger and you're like, I'm not getting fired.
Yeah. Think about the Jets, and you're going from a team that had an all-world defense just 2 years ago. And is there any spot where they're in a better position 2 years later than had they never signed him at all and went any other direction at all?
No.
And there's not a single spot you can say, yeah, well, this is at least better. Maybe viewership. We've talked about them more, so they're in the.
You would have that, right? Like you'd have ticket sales, you'd have jersey sales. Like the off the field stuff would inevitably be better.
Right.
But honestly, I think they could have done exactly what they did if they didn't move off Zach Wilson. And I don't think he's a good quarterback.
Right.
But that's another guy that was overdrafted and underdeveloped.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I said, even if you had just stuck with him for one more year and just been bad, at least then you would have been making another plan for quarterback. What you did was freeze that whole position, then cater to his every whim the whole year he was there. And now what do you have? Your defense has gotten worse. You fired your defensive head coach, and your defense got even worse after he left. You've ruined offensive continuity. I mean, you may have alienated your best player, and I'm not talking about Devontae. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know anything that you've improved on. So
no, it's if you're a Jets fan, you're mad. Yeah. That being said, that gets us to the top of the hour. We got to.
You're just mad because you're a Jets fan, though, not just because Aaron Rodgers. But that's another point.
Yeah, for a long time. Like
yeah,
your best years in recent memory were butt fumble. So anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. If you're watching on Roku TV, stay tuned for the next hour. Otherwise, we got to get out of here because we have 2 seconds left. So take it easy, everybody.
In Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports Podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast Podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows, giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming